We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the podcast about Red Dwarf here on the We Made This podcast network. We are into our Series 8 coverage where we look at the final series produced by the BBC. Some of us like it, some of us don't. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host. I'm doing my best not to be a moody old queen. And with me at this time is my co-host, Kurt North. Hello, Kurt.
King Kurt to you. Thank you.
Good. And we're also joined for the third episode in a row by Carl Bryan. Hello, Carl.
That's the Duchess of Carl. Thank you very much.
Okay, King and Duchess. Good. Yeah, we're doing Back in the Red, and this is part 3 of Back in the Red, which was the third episode of Series 8. And yeah, we've got Carl for a third episode, which is rare. But we just decided that it made sense to have the same co-host for Back in the Red, the whole lot. And we discovered last week that Carl watched it in some kind of weird-ass, amalgamated fucking feature-length episode that I didn't even know was a thing.
If there's extended ones out there, then I will watch them when I don't need to.
I prefer a perfectly adequate 3-parter, thank you. Rather than extended. Don't need extensions. It's all good.
I'm watching it in a feature length like Doug Naylor desperately would have wanted.
They really wanted to do a film, didn't they?
Yeah.
But they
He probably still wants to do a film.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard what the idea was for the film?
No. Oh, didn't they find Fuchal?
No, they get back to Earth, but when they get back to Earth, there is an army of what's the word?
Army of lovers?
Not droids.
Mechanoids.
No. Synthetics. Army of synthetics. Just having a massive battle around Earth, and they are the last ship to arrive, basically. There's been an intergalactic call out to everybody to come and help, and the last ship to get there is Red Dwarf. So it's basically pretty much Red Dwarf versus Alien.
That doesn't sound great.
No, from what I understand, it didn't sound particularly good. Just like them versus a giant group of murderous simulants. That's the word I'm looking for. A group of murderous, massive simulants versus the Red Dwarf crew. They're the last defense for Earth. That was the idea. So I'm kind of glad the movie's never really transpired.
Fair enough. Season 8, Episode 3, Back into the Red Part 3, was written by Doug Naylor and directed by Ed Bye. It was broadcast on the 4th of March, 1999. It opens with Rimmer and Lister, who have been in prison for 1 day of their 2-year sentence. Rimmer went to see the priest and social worker and got beat up by both of them. They talk about the D-Wing, which has nicer facilities. There's even a Gideon's Bible. There's security cams, and it's impossible to escape.
I do like the joke of Lister thinking Gideon is one bloke that follows him everywhere.
He left it. They left it there again. I like it. Like Rimmer's like shoulder patch is like ripped off.
Yeah. The thing I noticed as well is something's also happened to Lister. And I think it could be a smeg up that they just cut away from. But when they come in, Rimmer sits down and is like, I just got the crap kicked out of me. Lister seems to be hunched over like he's got a bad back. And then he tries to climb up onto the bunk, and you just see it before he cuts away. He completely fails.
Yeah.
But then you can see in Chris Barry's close-up, you could see Craig Charles's shadow go up, and he's actually got on the bed. But the first time he tries, he just doesn't manage it at all. And I like that Rimmer gets beaten up by the psychologist, and who then starts to read his book to him, being nicer to inmates or something like that.
It cuts to 2 days earlier, and Hollister's log recaps part 1 and part 2 of Back in the Red. We then cut
in letterbox format as well.
What's letterbox format?
Well, it's all letterbox. So the screen goes from 16:9 to a 2:39.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Well, it's not 2:39. It's nowhere near scope, but yeah, it goes to a letterbox.
Full square to skinny is what you mean.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Full square to squinny. Squinny.
Skinny. Yeah. Skinny equals future.
Exactly. It then cuts to the new set for the augmented reality suite. And it looks a bit cooler, but it's a bit weird for me in as much as, I mean, I know it was like ski boots and painted gloves and stuff, but the Series 6 augmented reality, seems to be more restrictive than that. They're more strapped in.
Because this is supposed to be old tech, isn't it? Because this is Red Dwarf when it was originally made.
Okay.
So it could be the older tech. Because if you think about the different times we've seen this kind of thing is Gunmen, where he's got that one. And then there's Back to Reality, which is kind of got the one where they're all sat down.
Back to Reality was on a triangle tape, wasn't it, if I remember
And
right?
the AR suite in 7.
Yeah.
Where it's like all black and the thing. And it looks suspiciously like a Borg section as well. If you look at the section, it's totally the Borg.
It's quite interesting because when you look at them a bit closer, they're all stood there. And there's things like, I think it's Craig Charles has got an old Games Master like golden joystick.
Brilliant.
And he's just moving around with it. So it's quite interesting that even they're under the psychotropic. They've said in the previous episode that the psychotropic thing expands their kind of mental wherewithal. So that seems to extend to being able to control what they're doing in the augmented reality, maybe.
It seems a bit more like the Back to Reality stuff rather than the augmented reality stuff as well to me.
Maybe that explains where the funky guitar riff from the previous episode came from. It's like Back to Reality when there's the heroic Red Dwarf version with the full like on your knees guitar riff.
You know, Colin found that track on YouTube, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's called Victory because obviously, what else would it be called?
In Hollister's speech, there's some funnies such as he wanted the sexual magnetism and he blackmailed his way to the top as a captain. And then we see the Dibleys get into Blue Midget.
Well, there's the very funny bit about Hollister in the recap that it's revealed that if anybody finds out he's really Dennis the Donut Boy, he's finished.
Yes. Yeah, there is a little bit of extra kind of funny on Hollister in that, isn't there?
I can't remember exactly what it says, like it's thing, but it's something that could work.
Yeah. Well, no, if I remember correctly, he goes over like Rimmer's using confidential information to try and get his way up the ranks. It's a brilliant plan. I know that because I did it myself.
Yeah.
And that totally instills him into the Red Dwarf universe for me. Like you only see him as a captain. I know he's done bits and bobs over the seasons. But to hear him to say like Dennis the Donut Boy, it's like he's part of the posse. He's one of the dwarfers. In my head, it's like he's landed.
And it is quite nice in as much as it could have been a lot drier as just a recap, but they do put some gags in, almost in the way that they did with Holly in series 1 and 2 as well.
Yeah.
So the Dibleys get to Blue Midget in their escape attempt. Ground Control, who is a very attractive woman, asks for their flight clearance. Cat convinces her that he can fly it by making it dance an elaborate tap dance routine alongside his teeth castanets. He asks her out on a date, and she says yes and gives them the clearance. That paragraph does not do this scene anything like the justice, and I deliberately wrote it as such.
Ground Control, this is Major Tom.
I mean,
it's one of the funniest things in this episode, without bar none. It's so funny.
I mean, Bowie. Any reference to Bowie and I'm happy.
Also, it's the return of I'm smooth with a capital SMOO.
Which is interesting because we said that the Crichton line in the previous episode. So there's definitely some stuff about deliberately showing there's a nuance of how the characters talk. And that's really thoughtful.
Yeah, it's fun as well because he says I'm smooth with a capital SMOO and she laughs. So with the cat, it's not all bluster. He can actually be super charming. And the thing got me is because when it first started, which I think was 96, I watched Hollyoaks quite a bit, and the lady playing ground control is Yasmin Bannerman, who was one of the original 6 actors in Hollyoaks.
Right.
And she'd left by this point. This was the first time I was like, oh, it's her. And she ended up going to be in Cold Feet not long after this. But yeah, I liked as well, because the show, it does a good job these first few episodes in establishing just how big Red Dwarf is. Because you see ground control and it's made up of loads of different booths with loads of different people in. And if you actually watch back the bit where it sort of shows all of them before it zooms in on Yasmin Bannerman, there's some people there doing some glorious typing acting.
My favourite bit of this is, the turbulence on those blue midgets are ridiculous, aren't they? Just watching them in the background, just shaking around like this, and it's like, you're not going anywhere.
It's more turbulence than when they had that accident in part 1.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This scene really was huge amounts of fun, and I wonder whether they were looking for another tongue-tied, another infamous scene that kind of like gives you a thing about Red Dwarf that, out of context, you're like, what the fuck? But then you don't care because it's so cool.
I don't know. I mean, this, from what I remember, this had Charles Organs doing it as well.
Did. You're absolutely right.
So I think it's in the documentary on the DVDs where Craig Charles is moaning that they just took up like half a studio just for Danny and Charles Organs to dance. Oh no, there's footage. It's an actual woman, isn't it? It's a woman dancing with him who they replaced with Blue Midget.
Right, is it?
Yeah, it's like mocap, but without the mocap suit. They just basically filmed her next to him and then tried to copy it best they could with the 3D model, which for 1999 is a lot.
Oh, it's great. The scene is great. And I don't think it's aged anywhere near as terribly as a lot of the stuff in the remasters and other stuff from the previous series. I think it was fine. In fact, no, I'm not going to say fine. I think it was great. I think it's still great. And I think it's lots and lots of fun. And it doesn't need to be perfect because the whole point is that a fucking blue midget, a spaceship dance, it's great. And it's great. Yeah. And Danny John Jules is super talented.
Disagree.
Really?
Don't like this.
Really?
I get what they're doing. I just don't like it at all. I love every bit up until that point. Up until this, he slides down the thing. I just don't like the rest of this scene. It bores the hell out of me.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. There's so much to dislike about these 3 episodes, Kurt, and this is what you dislike, the good bit.
I like the actual, obviously it's showing off the agility of Danny John Jules, but a bit I don't think gets credited enough is his landing back into Blue Midget.
Yes.
It's really smooth.
It is.
And I like the fact that in the time it's taken him to do this whole dance and he lands back in, they've now changed out of the dibbly stuff into their rest of the series clothes. Yeah. So, and this is one of Lister's best outfits, the kind of red shirted one, but he doesn't wear it that much because he goes to the tank in the next episode or this episode.
Tap dancing, right? It's never been anything that I've really considered a thing that has much impact on my life. But as I was watching this, within the next couple of days, I was on the phone to my dad, how are you doing? Et cetera, just a chat with my pops. And he's relatively recently widowed and, just keep in touch because, you don't know how long he's got left. He's 75. And suddenly, 5 minutes in, I've taken up tap dancing, son. You've done what? So my 75-year-old widowed father is learning tap dancing. And I tell you what, I'm fucking proud of him. I'm so fucking proud of him. And it just so happened he told me 2 days after I watched this scene, which made it even better.
They're saying, well, just learn this, please.
Well, Lionel Blair's gone, Mark. Someone's got to pick up the mantle.
I know, right? But I was just so proud of him, and it's brilliant. He's one of a kind, and it's probably the reason why I'm one of a kind too.
His neighbours are going to love it.
He's bought the fucking shoes. He's got like these little, they're like fucking Cuban heels and stuff. And,
one of the things they alluded to in this episode, but in that scene, by the way, was that they wanted to do a Will Smith Men in Black with the alien moment.
Right.
That's kind of like that's kind of like the thought behind it.
I didn't think of that. Oh, okay.
It's definitely a remarkable set piece, particularly considering how old it is. It's what? 15 years old now.
And I bet you in the script, all it said was Blue Midget dances with the cat.
More than 15 years.
Yeah,
22 years. Yeah, fuck. Rimmer walks up to Thornton and blackmails him to get past him into the AR suite. The crew are looking for nanos in Blue Midget on an AR screen, and Rimmer observes them incriminating him. He then deletes all references to the deal that he made with Lister, and they feel it in the game because it gets really glitchy. Crichton then works out that they're in AR, and Kachansky works out that it's their trial. What I really like about this is the functionality is Crichton, but the actual intelligence, where an officer would be quite perceptive, is Kachansky. They get this really, really right there, I thought.
Yeah.
Kachansky's line's brilliant as well. I feel like that all the time. If that's not like a call or Red Dwarf, just like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Now, this is this whole section is prime Red Dwarf for me. I absolutely love the next 10 minutes of this. It's unreal. And going back to that kind of like calling back to old Red Dwarf, it's Whitehall, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
There's a bit we've skipped over a little, which is Rimmer making the guard go away.
Thornton.
Yeah, with because he now knows all of the confidential files. I mean, he comes. He's still feeling the effects of the anesthetic on his crotch, so he's kind of like punch drunk. And he starts reeling off all these facts about Thornton, that he's this tall, this is inside leg measurement, he's circumcised. And when Thornton goes, how do you know all this? It's with the bile and venom that he goes, jazz fan, right in his face. And then he says that once he was admitted to the Medibay completely naked, and he whispers in his ear with what he was attached to. If you've got the subtitles on, it reveals what he was attached to, which is the suction end of a vacuum cleaner.
Okay.
So that's what Thornton did before that Rimmer uses against him to go away. I just thought I'd raise that just because of the just the subtitles aspect of it revealing more plot.
Brilliant.
You know what? It's strange. We actually talked about that in our Discord channel where Carl's doing an episode of The Discourse, Carl Sweeney on The Discourse with Tony Black, and a lot of youngsters now are watching TV with the subtitles on, irrespective of if they can hear or not. And it's like kind of like a new trend that's happening. And he was asking like people in the Discord channel that we're in, just what do you do? And I was like, well, 25 years of playing in a band, my hearing's shot. So I actually, a lot of the times for podcasting, I'll put subtitles on, purely because you kind of, when you're writing your notes, it actually makes sense because you'll see things before they're said and you can just like jot them down and stuff. But even like that's crept into my TV world now. I don't do it all the time, but on certain shows, I will put subtitles on, and it's become a norm. But it's interesting that youngsters do it now.
I mean, I watch subtitles on pretty much everything.
I never do. Well, unless it's obviously a foreign language film and I need them.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I used to do it as a kid. I used to put, teletext 888. Used to put that on and have that up. I used to have it on all the time. I think it's because I used to watch stuff quite late at night, and we had an upstairs living room next to my parents' bedroom, so I couldn't have the TV too loud. So I used to have the subtitles on. I do. We've not got to the point where Rimmer starts erasing bits yet.
No, we're just getting onto that now.
No.
Yeah. So they work out that he's doing that, and then Lister said that it's a good thing, and it will prove that they're innocent because they've tried to escape to prove their innocence. They then work out that Rimmer is framing them. And Crichton says there should be a trapdoor to exit so that they can stop him. Kat works out an incredibly cryptic clue to find the trapdoor and presses the button.
Yeah, so I'm going to cut off with a the cut.
I love the timing of that. Yeah. It's like, I don't know who it is, but I know who it is. And when I catch him, I'm going to cut off a blunt knife.
Very clever. Very clever.
There's also a wanking joke, which is which we haven't had one for a couple of series, I'm pretty sure, which is the cat says, after all this, I haven't got a date. I'm going to have to send a Valentine's card to my hand again.
And then, in a bizarre turn, we get Claymation Red Dwarf. They're looking for a power source to get out because they've worked out they're probably still in the AR if they're Claymation. And Lister gets nommed and then spat out by a big fish. Yes, that's a good impression. The cat finds a bottle of ketchup, and it's another cryptic clue, and it gets them out to see Rimmer tinkering. What the fuck?
Power source!
I love the reaction where the cat keeps getting the answers to these.
Yeah.
And he gets the E11T exit, and just Lister's reaction of, he got that.
Yeah.
Just...
What's down this hole?
Yeah.
This just pound for pound, brilliant Red Dwarf for me. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
It does feel like Pingu, though, doesn't it?
It's shot on film. It looks like it's shot on film because there is a distinct graininess to it. Yeah.
It really looks and feels like Pingu. All it needs is Beaky Mouse going, boo, and it would be Pingu. It's odd. I love it. And this episode, it's got the tap dancing, it's got the fucking Pingu homage. That wasn't what I was expecting after the first two episodes. It's a fascinatingly peculiar episode, this one, I think.
Well, there's a little thing as well as when they come out of the thing and it says shut down on the screens. It's in the old font that's in like the first three series that the titles used to be in. Just a lovely little design touch.
I didn't spot that. That's actually very nice.
I like as well when we see them now, they're out of the AR, you see Rimmer, and Rimmer's a mess.
Yes.
Like he's sweaty, his hair's all messed up, he can't walk properly, and he's just trying to weasel his way out of everything.
I'll tell you who isn't a mess. Kochanski isn't a mess. 19-year-old Kurt liked this scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she's giving it socks, isn't she? She really is. The break where she breaks free and she sort of like
she's animalistic.
Yeah, she's blatantly enjoying herself doing this, lusting after. I do remember laughing my head off it because it's so out of character for her. After the last two series,
there's even a bit because after she like sort of growls, she kind of like pulls his face of like sort of her jaw drops down. It's like like that. And it's like, oh, okay.
The almost desperate thing of, I want his babies. And she starts like wiggling her tongue at him. It's really funny.
And again, I don't think an episode has gone by where I haven't said how incredible an actor Chloe Anna is, but this is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And it's a reaction when she just goes like, oh my God.
That's so embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing.
but
and who does she turn
Crichton.
to? Crichton. Yeah.
Brilliant.
She's proper like, it's just the performance of it. It's so opposite of everything else. Yep. And I just remember the line, I want his babies, just because it doesn't even seem sexual. It just doesn't.
I don't know how the look virus would counter the sexual magnetism virus. Doesn't.
You've got a virus, so the look virus will cause you to recover from a virus quicker, regardless of what the virus is. Because that's what happens to Lister in the lift.
Gotcha. Holly suggests that they escape to a moon.
Sorry.
I know, that gag. I was going to like skirt over it and then come back to it, but that gag.
The best Holly gag in the series.
So good. I mean, all three of us are follically challenged gentlemen. I would absolutely do that gag.
It's the speed with which he zooms back in. Exactly. He's really happy that they've got it. Maybe it's after the Nostralamo that they didn't get. They've got this first time.
Crichton says that they need to take Rimmer with them as he has the access codes. They convince him by telling him that his aspirations can't happen anymore, but he can be a full crew member with them and have 5 buttons as the head of safety.
5, you say?
5 buttons.
Whole buttons.
5 whole buttons.
I love when they start listing the reasons why you should join. And Holly does a damn good Moon impression. Kat says a 6-month waiting list for birds to appear whenever he's near.
And, I have been a bit of a sourpuss, quite rightly a sourpuss, but there's some fucking great gags in this, some weird and wonderful shit in this episode. Even the stuff with the sexual magnetism thing, because it's not acted upon, is genuinely very, very funny. I mean, it does help that Clarinet's brilliant, but this episode is, this is a good episode, he says. On Blue Midget, ground control isn't quite as attractive as she had been previously, and she mistakenly understands that the cat's name is Reality Sucks.
Oh, Mr. Sucks.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Oh, man.
They break out without clearance. The escape attempt is incredibly successful, but Crichton says they need to salvage some fabric softener on a ship called the Einstein. They ask Holly what the theory of relativity is, and he doesn't know. Holly says that he recreated the nanos to get them to resurrect the crew to keep Lister sane, and that they're still in AR.
Well, it's a theory. The theory you give to your relatives.
Yeah, this is series 2 level of Holly gag, though, isn't it? And this is the kind of thing that would have got him to have Queeg take over, isn't it? Back at Hollister's office, it's confirmed that they are right and that there is a non-computer senile Holly with him who's got a Coned. Hollister clears them of the original charges, but they're now guilty of abusing classified information. And this is a crime with a 2-year sentence, which replaces the previous sentence of a 2-year sentence. Holly brings them back out of AR. I liked that gag. That they cleared themselves of a 2-year sentence and earned a 2-year sentence. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's where the alternative as well goes. So instead of the original 2-year sentence, which carries a sentence of 2 years in the brig, they've got an entirely different.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Just brilliantly played.
Why has he got a cone head?
Oh, no.
I do like that when he sort of said, I've been outsmarted by a superior intellect, the cat just goes, oh, that handwriter has outsmarted you again. Maybe it's a bit of a thing to, you know how we used to see Holly at the beginning of the first couple of series and he was all stretchy, and maybe part of me wonders if it was a kind of thing like that, but he doesn't really move around much.
Is he suggesting he's got a bigger head to fit a bigger brain in? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, good.
It's a weird one.
He's got a cone head.
Because we never really see this Holly again.
No, we never see that Holly again. No, we don't. They check its reality by confirming Rimmer has the viruses. Lister hides the sexual magnetism from Hollister, and the crew blames Rimmer. Next up is a classic lineup a la the front cover of Usual Suspects, and they are convicted to the tank. And I did look it up. It is a reference to the Usual Suspects because that was released in 1995.
Well, that was Little Green Bag, wasn't it? As well. That was a continuing on that thing.
Yeah, that's referencing classic, amazing American films. Yeah. In the tank, they're amongst the other inmates, and they're welcomed by the guard. And then the fun episode is ruined when Lister puts the sexual magnetism virus onto Rimmer, and it's heavily suggested that he's going to get gang raped. End of the episode. Happy times. Ugh.
Right. So obviously we're in the brig now, and this is the introduction to one of my favorite characters in this upcoming series, which is Graham McTavish as the warden, who is so. I mean, people now know him from what's it called? Outlander. And also he's in the official sequel to The Wicker Man, The Wicker Tree. And he is just so gloriously campy, Alan Rickman in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, villain throughout all of this. And I'm so happy he's in this series because he's one of the characters I think that really makes it for me.
Yeah, he appeared in Lucifer, in the last season of Lucifer as well.
He did, yeah. He's one of them who turns up in a lot of stuff. And it's taken him a while to get to... He's always been like a jobbing actor. And now in the last few years, it's really sort of taken off for him.
Yeah, because it's actually, looking at it, he's in one of the best episodes of Lost. He was in the Constant. Yeah, he was in the Constant. He was an army officer in the Constant and Lost.
I bet that's where it started to take off. If you appear in Lost, I think a lot of people who appeared in Lost, people go, oh, look at that guy, because it was the most watched show on television.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in Lost, and then he was in Prison Break for 4 episodes. Then he was in 24 for 5 episodes. He was in Colony. That was with Josh not Josh Duhamel, the person who played Sawyer in Lost.
Josh
he's been in House of Dragon recently, and he was in The Witcher as well. 2 episodes of The Witcher.
Yeah. Did we cover how Holly admits to having created all of this?
No, I was going to say that, but I think that was just I was going to add it as my note at the end, but so I've kind of buggered this up, haven't I?
Yeah, well, he says he created everybody, so the nanobots haven't got a virus. It's Holly, and it's a diversion. He says it's a diversion to keep Dave sane.
which again is reiterating the story of Red Dwarf, isn't it? It's again going back down that wheelhouse and almost soft rebooting it. And I like you said before, there's all these things in these 3 episodes has been referring back to Red Dwarf, all the greatest hits, really.
Yeah, I love Norman Lovett's delivery of "my job is to keep Dave sane." True, I'm not good at it. I do love that sort of happily, openly. No, I'm not good at it. The last shot it's very problematic, but watching it now and looking at the people, because I have it on in the background when we do these recordings, everybody's got like a mohawk that's bright red or like Insane Clown Posse dreads, and it's like this new metal band's getting quite friendly with Rimmer. It's 1999. Just 1999 new metal band hairstyles.
We almost had an entire episode that didn't make light of rape. I almost managed to not be the guy who has to point out the fucking rape gags, but they had to ruin it at the end, didn't they?
Unfortunately, it was set up at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
But overall, I'd say that if you take out the last couple of seconds, then it's a fantastic episode.
You're absolutely right.
I mean, I actually enjoyed it more than talking about it now than I have done watching it. Just realising just how good it is. I mean, yes, I said I disagree about the dance thing. I understand that dance thing. I understand, obviously, it's in the middle of a fever dream, effectively. So I understand where it's coming from. It doesn't have the same impact as Tongue Tied. Tongue Tied started with that and moved swiftly on. This kind of felt like, you're slowing the episode down for nothing much, really. And again, it felt a little bit padding, but it's not padding because they spent a lot of money on it.
Oh, yeah.
They spent a lot of time on it. So they put a lot of hard work into it, and it bears fruit, and all the technical aspects of it, I have no problems with. For me, it just drags the episode down a touch. Not by much, just a touch. In when I'm actually physically watching it, because I kind of go, right, this is the time I'm going to get my phone up and have a look at stuff. That's generally what I kind of have.
But I think the way you mentioned Tongue Tied, I would watch just Tongue Tied and not watch the rest of that episode. I would watch just this scene and not watch the rest of this episode as well. I think it really is as iconic and special as the Tongue Tied video. I really do. And I get your point, and I can see where you're coming from. But for me, it was just an absolute highlight of all of Red Dwarf ever. I'll quickly go through the commentary, my notes from that. One of them was about Charles Organs directing that scene. And they pointed out that this episode was recorded significantly later than the first 2 parts of Back in the Red. Norman Lovett elaborated on why he doesn't like David Ross. And I quote...
Why is it, Mark? Why is it?
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Scandal.
And I quote, because David Ross was a theatre actor, he asked him, "Are you legit?" Suggesting that if he hadn't acted in theatre, he wasn't a legitimate actor. What a cunt David Ross is. Everything I've seen about this guy, he's just a condescending, unpleasant person to be around.
That's bad, isn't it? You can't say that.
But the fact that Norman Lovett tells that story, I'm not sure he should have done that either. Norman Lovett isn't innocent here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He should have kept his gob shut and maybe told his mates, but not put it on a BBC commentary track. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. These snapshots of what was okay at the time. Because these commentaries were recorded, I think, about 3 or 4 years later. But there's no way anyone would do that now.
Yeah.
They also said about how the Scutters were more reliable in this series than they were in series 1 and 2, but they did cause a lot of problems. And I'm delighted that they caused problems, because it wouldn't be Red Dwarf if the Scutters weren't a pain in the ass.
No.
We've made our way through all of the epic that is Back in the Red.
And I've noticed that you've already, on our little drive spreadsheet, said recorded. So, you quickly wanted to get that in the bag.
Yeah. So, Kurt, where can people find you on the internet?
Find me on Linktree. Type in Linktree, followed by rmuldrake, RMULDRAKE, where you can find a whole host of things that I'm currently on with at the moment.
Carl, what about yourself?
You can find me at allmylinks.com/Mr. Carl.
And if you're looking for me, it's at Mark Adams HC on Twitter and or Instagram. I'm better at Twitter, but I'm trying to do well on Instagram. But by the time this goes out, I might have given up again because I fucking hate it. So thank you for joining us for another episode of Shipwrecked and Comatose. We're back next week with a brand new one of our guest co-hosts. Well, they're not really guests, are they? It's not Carl. We've got Colin. He's with us next week. So until then.
An upgrade, really.
No, you're both lovely. Fuck me.
Mark, I want to have your babies.
Get back, he's mine.
Welcome to the third age of podcasting.
The year is 2023.
The name of the podcast
Is a dream given form.
Join us for the 30th anniversary of Babylon 5 as we move to fortnightly episodes looking back at The Gathering, the pilot episode of Babylon 5, Season 1 and beyond, with a plethora of guests to join us too. The Gathering is actually 1 week where we critique. There's some good stuff in there, but we can absolutely critique too, I think.
I completely agree, definitely. I liken The Gathering and the first episode. I kind of compare them to the X-Files pilot and Deep Throat. I wouldn't say hate, but it's a very, very strong dislike of the cycle.
Yeah, well, I feel like the cycle ruined one of us childhood. Yeah. So,
I
essentially.
mean, and also, as well, there were levels. There's Talia representing the psycho that destroyed her mother, and then there's Bester and Bester and Kelsey, who are just psychopaths, and they are the personification of everything that she hates. And be sure to check out all our content from the last year of A Dream Given Form, including thematic look-backs at the show.
And today we're going to be discussing the 3 prominent leaders of Babylon 5. Sinclair, Sheridan and Delenn.
We thought we would combine our 2 greatest loves, because it's not just Babylon 5, it's Lord of the Rings too, because there's a lot of Lord of the Rings influences that JMS drew upon developing Babylon 5, and even interviews with some of the stars of Babylon 5 itself.
He said, I'll tell you what. He said, what would you like to do if you had a character? I said, first of all, I don't want to carry a ray gun. I don't want to carry a blaster or a transporter thing. Beam me up, Scotty. I want to be different than everybody you have on here. And I want to carry a sword because that is what he lives by. That's part of his thing, his warrior mentality.
I love hearing that people are still interested in Babylon 5. And, it's really an honor to continue the conversation around a show that meant so much to us. And, it was the little show that could.
So check out A Dream Given Form, a Babylon 5 podcast on the We Made This network.
The last
best hope
for peace.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast network.